Yeah, and I just gotta say, you mentioned Rogan in there, and obviously you went on the guy's show, and I saw your Slate article about your appearance on it, and so sort of in preparation for this, I watched it, and I have to say, you were a little hard on yourself in that article, man. Like, it was a good fucking podcast. Like, I enjoyed it. It was entertaining. It's a good subject. You had things to say. Like, what was that experience like?
No, that's a good question. I, I, I like writing because writing allows you to control the pace of the reader's experience, and so that's how I like to communicate with readers. I mean, in the moment felt I felt like I was talking. So I had just been on a book tour. I felt like I was talking to a liberal audience that wasn't there. That I was like, well, Thompson's a white man from the 60s, but he has a lot to say about democracy. And Joe Rogan just wanted to talk about him. He wanted to have a friendly conversation. There was something so genuine about his excitement. And I wasn't quite seeing that. It was as if I was having a conversation in another way. And I appreciate that. Like it was a fine. I think it went well. But so the essay in Salon that I wrote was a lot about
Salon,
the
sorry.
nervousness. No, it's the nervousness I felt. I just was I and how things speed up. And that's for me how ADHD tends to work, being overwhelmed in that sense. And I, and then there's also just like, I mean, I got anybody that goes on there gets death threats for whatever I'm sure they
Of
said or
course.
they're doing. But, like that exposed to a troll community afterwards. But I do think too, part of what strikes me now about listening to that interview from 2019 is how focused I was on Donald Trump and bringing everything back to Donald Trump as if and it had a set of talking points. And I only bring that up to say that it's amazing how much that politics in our world was dominated even only 3 years ago by a singular figure. And so going on Rogan's show, and I had done a lot of publicity for the book, on a book tour, but I guess I regretted not um, going into it. One, having just done the goddamn research by listening to a bunch more of Rogan's podcasts,
Right.
um, and two, um, I wish I would have taken him at face value in front of me more, um, instead of imagining there's such a big audience out there, or talking the way I talked on my book tour. When I'm at a university, with members of the gender studies department and with my English department colleagues, and we're just talking about different issues. And he wasn't like that. And so in the essay, like I think that he gets a lot of flack for not following up when people make certain comments, or putting pressure on him. But I do think that's one of his strengths. And I experienced it because I had not wanted to say when I was on the show that I had ADHD. So it's basically as if which I do, and I have been treated for it, medically for much of my life. And I just didn't want to say it, and I didn't want to admit that. And I thought, was generous in not following up on that. Because basically, if I'm saying I'm taking Adderall, but I don't have ADHD or a prescription, I'm saying I'm taking it illegally.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's, of course, not the case. And I had written about it, but he could have really pressed there, and then he was just genuine and generous. And he really, does love Thompson's work. I mean, I teach writers, I teach brilliant MFA students. I think they're great, but I see a lot of writers today that don't read. They don't read,
Really?
and it's just like, I mean, that's what I like about Rogan too, is he's read everything. I mean, I'm not here to, condone his behavior or to excuse it or to, really say anything else. That one, I think that he does have a genuine skill, and two, he's read everything Thompson's written. He's a genuine fan of Hunter Thompson. And people like, I want to write a novel on this. I've started it like, oh, well, what novels have you read that are like it that you love, that are kind of a blueprint for how you would do it? And you're like, oh, I don't read novels. Like, why do you want to write a novel if you don't read novels? It's like, it kind of blows my mind. And so, that's another thing too, is that Thompson, there, there's something so musical to his prose, to his perspective. It's a lot for me similar to George Orwell's work, even though they're vastly different stylistically. Orwell really feels like he's like an old Russian novelist, like reaching his arm out around you to say, "Hey, there was a time in Burma when I was working as a magistrate, when I was hated by more people than I would ever be. When he's Shooting an Elephant by George Orwell, there's such an intimacy to that writing, where Orwell's just talking to you directly, that I feel is present in Thompson's work, in his best work. And I've always been attracted to that. And it was nice to talk to Rogan because I could see he was genuinely attracted to that. He genuinely enjoyed that too.